let's unpack this. I want you to imagine a scenario for a second.
Yeah.
You are walking into this incredibly high-stakes meeting.
Right.
You've got your pitch deck perfectly polished. Your track record is looking solid. Your team is completely prepped, and you are just entirely ready to sell.
You feel invincible.
Exactly. You sit down in that, mahogany-paneled conference room, and you deliver what you honestly feel is the pitch of a lifetime.
The holy grail pitch.
Yeah. And the person sitting across the table, the one with the actual power to write a massive check, they nod, they smile warmly, and they say, "This is incredibly interesting. Let's definitely stay in touch as you progress."
The classic line.
Right. You walk out of the building feeling like $1 million. You call your team, you tell them you nailed it. But, and here is the massive, surprising revelation that we are kicking off this deep dive with today.
And it's a brutal one.
It is.
Yeah.
You didn't just have a great sales meeting. You actually just lost an information war.
Completely lost it. And you probably don't even realize you were fighting one to begin with.
Right. Because fundraising in private markets, or frankly, any high-level capital raising, isn't a sales process at all.
No, it's not.
It's information warfare. And the core problem you are facing, the one that drains months or even years of your time, is that limited partners rarely say what they actually mean.
They lie.
They lie to you.
Yeah.
But they do it with this absolute impeccable politeness.
It's what the material calls the polite deflection. And it is the ultimate trap.
Yeah, explain that a bit.
Well, they will offer you these incredibly courteous, encouraging responses just to keep the relationship warm.
Just in case.
Exactly. They want to keep their own optionality open without ever having the actual intention of committing capital to your fund.
Wow.
And what's really crucial to understand here, and the source material emphasizes this, is that this isn't malicious.
It's not personal.
Right. It's a structural reality of the market. LPs, the institutions, or the individuals actually investing the money, they have absolutely zero incentive to give you a harsh rejection.
Because why burn a bridge, right?
Exactly. But it means that you, as the general partner, the one out there raising the capital, you're left chasing ghosts.
You spend 6 months following up on a stay in touch.
When it was actually a hard no, the absolute second you walked in the door.
That is so painful. And let's just quickly pause and define our terms for anyone listening who might be navigating outside the private equity or venture capital bubble.
Good idea.
When we say LP, we mean limited partner. Those are the big pools of money, right? Pension funds, endowments, family offices, they invest into the funds.
Correct.
And when we say GP, general partner, that's you, the fund manager.
The one asking for the money.
Right. So you, the GP, are getting politely deflected by the LPs.
Which brings us directly to the core mission of today's deep dive.
Yes, it does. Because today is completely dedicated to unlocking a very specific, highly coveted body of knowledge. We are digging into the behavioral intelligence fundraising playbook.
And this isn't standard advice.
No, we are taking a stack of incredibly dense intelligence training materials. I mean, the kind of stuff that usually sits behind elite placement agent training programs.
It's the ones with the $10,000 price tags.
Exactly. And we're extracting the absolute gold. We're talking exact templates, CIA-style elicitation tools.
Highly tailored scripts.
Yeah, scripts completely designed to surface the actual truth in these high-stakes capital-raising scenarios. We are bypassing the polite noise and handing you the actual intelligence.
But to use these tools, there is a fundamental and honestly somewhat uncomfortable mindset shift that has to happen first.
Let's hear it.
We have to move completely away from what the playbook calls the old model.
And the old model is basically what I described in that opening scenario, right?
Exactly. Showing up with a slick deck, delivering a one-way monologue, answering whatever random questions the LP happens to ask.
Blindly hoping for a next step.
And then just following up into a void, it's completely passive. We have to shift entirely to the behavioral intelligence model.
Okay, what does that look like practically?
In this model, you are actively designing your meetings around specific unknowns. You are reading behavioral signals.
You aren't there to pitch.
No, you are there to gather intelligence.
So to you listening right now, whether you're a first-time fund manager trying to break through the noise, or a seasoned capital raiser feeling the friction of a slow market, or honestly, just someone navigating complex negotiations in your own career, these tools are going to completely change how you listen to what isn't being said.
It changes everything.
So let's build the foundation. What exactly is the toolkit we're talking about here?
The playbook breaks down behavioral intelligence, or BI, into 3 core disciplines: First up is strategic elicitation.
Okay.
This is directly pulled from intelligence community methodologies. It's the subtle art of gathering information by increasing your target's cognitive load just enough
Just enough to do what?
to surface inconsistencies
Yo.
or to force out information they are actively trying to filter.
Okay, wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Increasing cognitive load and CIA methodologies, that sounds a bit like we are, interrogating investors in a windowless room.
It does sound intense.
Right. Isn't the goal to build a long-term partnership here? Does this actually work without completely alienating people?
It's a vital question. But elicitation is not interrogation.
How so?
Interrogation is combative.
Yeah.
Elicitation is entirely conversational. The goal isn't to make them sweat under a spotlight.
Then what is it?
The goal is to design your phrasing so that their brain has to work slightly harder to maintain a polite fiction.
Ah.
Right. When cognitive load increases, when they have to mentally juggle what the truth is versus what the polite, safe answer is, that is when the social filters crack.
Just enough for the truth to slip out.
Exactly. And it feels entirely natural to the person you were speaking with. They don't feel interrogated at all.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about bypassing those autopilot responses. What's the second discipline?
Second is behavioral analysis. This is actively watching for the verbal and the paraverbal signals. How things are said. A sudden change in tone, a shift in pacing or volume, plus the nonverbal signals.
Right.
But crucially, we are looking for these signals specifically when a person's words do not match their true internal concerns.
Looking for the disconnect.
Yeah.
And the third discipline.
Hypothesis-driven interviewing.
Okay.
This is the absolute rule that you never ever take a meeting just to have a good conversation.
I feel like a lot of people are guilty of that.
A good conversation is a waste of an hour. Every single meeting must be a structured test of specific unknowns that you have identified beforehand.
And we really need to anchor why this matters right now. Like in this exact moment in the market. Let's be honest, the current environment is brutal.
It is entirely unforgiving right now.
Fundraising has slowed down significantly across almost every single asset class. LPs are what the industry calls overallocated.
Yes, and let's clarify what that means for people outside the space. It's the denominator effect.
Right. Explain that.
Public markets took a hit, so the public equities in an LP's portfolio shrank. This means the private market portion, which doesn't reprice as fast, suddenly became a much larger percentage of their total assets.
Larger than their rules actually allow.
Exactly. So mathematically, under their own governance structures, they literally cannot make new private investments without breaking their own rules.
Right. And whatever tiny sliver of capital they do have, they are spending it, defending re-ups.
Reinvesting with their existing legacy managers.
Just to maintain those old relationships. So more than ever, internal constraints matter. Office politics, budget approvals, the mood of their investment committee.
Those things matter 100 times more than the font you chose for your pitch deck, or how charismatic you are in the room.
If we connect this to the broader psychology of the market, it perfectly explains a hesitation we see everywhere.
Why they say interesting but early.
Exactly. Instead of just giving you a flat, honest no, it's because they have all these internal constraints and governance hurdles that they simply do not want to explain to a stranger.
They have immense social incentives to remain polite. Saying no requires a justification. It creates a tiny bit of social friction.
Whereas saying stay in touch is completely free.
It's the absolute path of least resistance. But BI, behavioral intelligence, allows you to separate the real verifiable momentum from those courtesy meetings.
By recognizing the polite lie.
Yes, it drastically shortens your sales cycle. You stop chasing the stay in touch and save yourself literally months of wasted effort.
You redirect that energy toward capital that can actually move.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get into the tactical execution of this. This is where the playbook gets incredibly practical. Week 2 of their training boot camp dives deep into the fundamentals of that CIA-style strategic elicitation.
And the absolute biggest secret weapon here, it completely flips normal conversation on its head.
I love this part. Tell them the secret.
The secret is using statements instead of just asking questions.
It is such a brilliant psychological mechanism.
Think about human nature. When someone asks you a direct question, especially in a professional setting, what happens?
Your brain immediately throws up a defensive filter.
Exactly. You instinctively ask yourself, why do they want to know this? What is the safe answer? What is the politically correct answer?
You go completely on defense.
Right. But when someone makes a statement, especially a statement that might be slightly inaccurate or that makes an assumption about your reality, human nature compels us to correct the record.
We have this deep-seated psychological need to be accurate and to correct other people.
We can't help ourselves. So by using a statement, you are completely bypassing their offensive filter by triggering their instinct to correct you.
Let's look at the exact script the playbook provides for this, because it's a literal masterclass.
Let's beer.
Let's say you are sitting across from an LP,
Yeah.
and you desperately need to know if they actually have room in their budget for a new manager, or if they're just window shopping.
The amateur move, the old model move, is to ask a direct question.
Right. You ask, are you currently active in committing to new managers?
And if you ask that, what does the LP say?
Well, they say, oh, absolutely. We are always looking for great opportunities.
Which is a completely useless answer.
It tells you absolutely nothing about their actual constraints.
Hmm.
So instead, the playbook instructs you to use what it calls a label and permission sequence.
It sounds like this. Many LPs we speak with are technically open to new managers, but practically they are entirely focused on defending re-ups this vintage. How true is that for you right now?
Let's really dissect why that phrasing is so powerful. First off, you are normalizing the behavior.
You are essentially telling them, hey, everyone else is struggling with this exact same constraint. It's totally okay if you are too.
You dramatically lower their defensiveness.
Yeah.
You give them permission to admit a constraint.
You're giving them an out, precisely. Second, you are stating a highly likely reality. If it is true that they are constrained, they will feel understood. They will likely lean in and expand on it. They'll tell you exactly how tight their budget is.
And what exceptions they might make.
Yes. Now, if it is false, they will immediately correct you. They will say, actually, no. We just got a new allocation approved specifically to find 2 emerging managers in this space.
Either way, you win.
Exactly. You get the hard, actionable truth rather than the polite, frictionless fiction.
Now, I can hear some people listening and thinking, okay, but if I walk into a meeting and make presumptuous statements about an LP's internal budget, couldn't that heavily backfire?
Oh, absolutely.
What if they find that arrogant?
And that is exactly where tonality comes in. If you deliver that statement aggressively, yes, it will backfire completely.
So how do you deliver it?
The elicitation statements must be delivered with a tone of genuine curiosity, almost a deferential seeking of their expertise,
You are offering a hypothesis.
and inviting them to collaborate on refining it. It is not an accusation, it's an observation of the market that you are asking them to validate.
That makes total sense. It's all in the delivery.
Yeah.
And while you are delivering these elicitation statements, you are supposed to be executing the second discipline, right?
Yes. Reading the matrix.
Watching their behavioral cues. Now, the playbook is very quick and frankly quite aggressive in pointing out that this is not what they call body language astrology.
Which is such a necessary distinction to make.
Yeah, we've all seen those pop psychology articles, the ones that say if someone crosses their arms, it means they are secretly angry at you.
Or they're closing themselves off.
Right.
That kind of analysis is completely unscientific, and it's entirely useless in a complex negotiation.
Because a person might cross their arms because the air conditioning in the conference room is blasting.
Or they have back pain.
Yeah.
Or it's just comfortable. True behavioral analysis, as defined by the intelligence community, relies entirely on a single, uncompromising methodology.
Baseline versus deviation. Explain how that actually works in practice.
You cannot interpret a single behavior unless you know how that specific person acts when they are entirely comfortable, when they are under zero cognitive load.
Right.
So, your absolute first step in any meeting before you pitch, before you probe, is to establish a baseline. You do this by deliberately bringing up low-stakes, highly factual topics early on.
Give me a concrete example of a low-stakes topic in this context.
You might say, before we dive into the fund mechanics, I'd love to walk me through how your specific investment program has evolved over the last few years.
Or maybe, how did your team structure change after the recent merger?
Perfect. Because it's a safe topic, they know the answer cold, there is no stress, no secret to hide.
And while they are comfortably answering that easy question, you are intensely observing.
You are calibrating your instruments. What is their baseline speaking tempo? Are they naturally a fast talker or a slow talker?
How much granular detail do they naturally provide?
What is their standard tone of voice? Do they normally use their hands to talk? You establish this baseline for a few minutes. Then and only then do you introduce the red flag topic.
The sensitive stuff.
Right, the topics where they have an actual incentive to hide the truth. asking about their balance between re-ups and new managers, asking about the real authority of their investment committee.
And that's when you watch for the deviation.
Precisely. You aren't looking for a crossed arm. You are looking for a micro shift away from the baseline you just established.
So if they were speaking quickly and fluidly about the history of their firm,
But the second you ask about their current budget capacity, their tempo suddenly slows down.
they start hitting their words.
They become unusually vague. They start using filler words like, when they hadn't used them before.
Or maybe they suddenly give a one-sentence answer when they've been giving paragraph-long answers for the last 10 minutes.
Exactly. And that deviation is the signal. The deviation itself doesn't tell you exactly what the lie is, but it acts as a flare going up in the night sky.
It tells you that in this exact moment, their words and their internal reality are no longer aligned.
There is friction, and that tells you exactly where you need to dig deeper.
So what does this all mean for how you actually prepare for a meeting? Because it means you can't just show up, grab a coffee, and start talking.
Winging it is officially dead.
Right. If you are going to track baselines and execute strategic elicitation, you need a system.
And the Playbook provides a very rigid, systematic prep and debrief engine.
It mandates that 24 to 48 hours before any call, your team must complete a specific pre-call template. And it is incredibly restrictive by design.
It forces discipline. The absolute biggest mistake capital raisers make is trying to boil the ocean in a 45-minute meeting.
Right. They want to pitch the whole firm.
You can't. The template limits you to a maximum of 3 critical objectives.
Just 3.
You are there to, say, clarify their true allocation capacity, figure out if there is a genuine strategy fit, and map out their internal decision-making process. That's it.
And then you have to go in with working hypotheses.
This is where you start acting like an intelligence analyst. You don't just go in to see what they say. You write down a working theory beforehand.
Give us an example.
Based on your prior research, you might write, Hypothesis 1. The internal investment committee's skepticism at this pension fund is centered around our team's depth and operational maturity, not our actual investment strategy.
Why is writing that down so important?
Because having a working theory focuses your listening. The human brain simply cannot process every single piece of data in a fast-moving conversation.
Sure.
If you have a hypothesis, you aren't just absorbing information passively. You are actively hunting for specific data points that either confirm, weaken, or wholly refute that exact theory.
You listen totally differently when you were trying to solve a specific puzzle.
Exactly.
The prep template also severely limits your questions. You are allowed 8 to 12 planned questions maximum.
And they have to progress logically.
You don't start with the hard stuff.
Never. You start with those low-stakes calibration questions to establish the baseline. Then, as the meeting progresses, you move into the sensitive topics using those statement-based elicitation sequences.
And finally, you end with commitment testing questions.
A commitment testing question is vital. It is not asking for money.
That's too aggressive for a first meeting.
Right. It's asking for a behavioral commitment, something like, based on what we've discussed, what specific criteria would need to be true internally for you to feel comfortable proposing us to your IC next quarter?
You are testing whether they are willing to define a path forward.
Or if they just offer another polite deflection.
But the preparation is only half the battle. This really blew my mind when I read it. The Playbook places equal, if not greater, emphasis on a post-call debrief.
It's the most neglected part of the process.
And there's an absolute non-negotiable rule here. The debrief must be completed immediately after the call ends, not tomorrow morning over coffee.
Not next week when you finally update the CRM. Immediately.
Why the urgency?
Because human memory is incredibly fallible. And it is highly susceptible to confirmation bias.
Oh, absolutely.
When we want a meeting to have gone well because our bonus depends on it or our fund's survival depends on it, our brains literally rewrite the memory of the meeting.
We have a terrible habit of only remembering the polite compliments. We hear, they said our strategy was fascinating, and we completely forget the subtle hesitations.
Or the fact that they never actually answered your specific question about their budget.
Right, which is why the debrief template forces a strict separation of facts. You have to document 2 distinct categories.
Apparent interest versus behavioral observations.
Apparent interest is the surface level. It is exactly what they said. The direct quotes, the polite deflections like, keep us updated on your next close.
And then the behavioral observations force you to contrast that. You have to actively document the deviations from the baseline.
So you write down, when asked about their timeline for a decision, the LP dropped eye contact, Their pacing slowed dramatically, and they offered a highly vague timeline.
You literally put the polite words right next to the negative behavioral signal.
The contrast is stark when you see it on paper.
Then you return to your hypotheses. Was hypothesis 1 confirmed, weakened, or disproved? You must cite the specific conversational evidence.
And all of this rigorous data collection culminates in what the Playbook calls the momentum score.
This is how you stop lying to yourself about your pipeline.
The momentum score is a 1 to 5 scoring framework that forces you to ruthlessly rank every prospect. It's based on 4 pillars, right?
Strategic fit, political feasibility, process proximity, and crucially, behavioral momentum.
That behavioral momentum score is the ultimate lie detector for your pipeline. Let's walk through a scenario.
Sure, let's say an LP scores a 5 on strategic fit. Your fund invests in mid-market healthcare buyouts, and their mandate is exactly that, perfect fit on paper.
Sounds like a done deal.
But if they score a 1 on behavioral momentum because every time you attempted to clarify their current vintage capacity, they completely deflected and changed the subject.
Well, the data tells you the truth.
This is a courtesy relationship. It is not a live opportunity,
It stops you from clogging up your CRM pipeline with false hope.
which is the death of so many emerging managers.
Okay, let's pivot and really dig into the actual execution of these questions based on who is sitting across the table.
Because you cannot treat all LPs the same.
That is a massive foundational point from the Playbook. The one-size-fits-all pitch deck is dead.
Right.
You cannot ask a nimble single-family office the exact same questions you ask a massive, highly regulated sovereign wealth fund.
The structural constraints are totally different.
So the Playbook provides these bespoke matrices, tailored interrogation strategies for different LP profile.
This is where intelligence gathering transitions from theory into highly strategic execution. Let's start with the giants, public pensions or sovereign wealth funds.
These are massive, bureaucratic, governance-heavy institutions managing billions or trillions of dollars.
Their primary constraints are rarely a lack of capital. Their constraints are entirely about process, optical risk, and deep internal politics.
So what is the tailored approach here?
You have to map the political landscape. The Playbook suggests a very specific high-yield question. How often does the investment committee historically override staff recommendations in this specific part of the portfolio?
I love that question because it completely cuts through the illusion of authority.
Exactly.
You might be having an amazing 2-hour lunch with a senior investment staff member. They love your strategy, they love your team, and you think you have it in the bag.
But if their IC overrides staff recommendations 80% of the time because the board is highly conservative,
You need to know that immediately. Your real target isn't the person you're having lunch with. Your real target is figuring out how to appeal to that invisible committee.
precisely, you are diagnosing the true seat of power. Now, contrast that giant pension fund with a fund of funds or a multi-manager platform.
Their constraints are structurally opposite.
They are not investing their own proprietary balance sheet. They are aggregating and investing capital on behalf of their underlying clients.
So their hands are tied by the promises they made to their investors.
Exactly. They are tightly bound by client mandates. So your high-yield elicitation here must test those bounds.
You ask, where are you currently most capacity constrained by your underlying client guidelines?
You are actively hunting for the structural wall they are hitting.
If their clients explicitly capped venture capital exposure at 10% and they are currently at 9.9%.
It doesn't matter if you are the best VC manager on earth. They literally cannot buy what you are selling. You need to know that before you spend 6 months courting them.
Okay, what about endowments and foundations?
Yeah.
Like a massive university endowment.
Endowments are fascinating because they tend to be highly thematic and deeply driven by their chief investment officer and the IC. They don't just fill buckets. They have strong opinions on where the world is going.
So what's the question?
The Playbook recommends testing their portfolio construction philosophy by asking, are you deliberately running a highly concentrated best ideas list, or are you maintaining a broader stable of managers for diversification?
Which radically changes your probability of success.
Dramatically. If they run a broad stable, maybe they back 50 managers. You just need to be good enough to make the top 50.
But if they run a best ideas list, they might only hold 5 managers globally in your asset class. The threshold to get into that portfolio just went through the roof. You are competing to displace an incumbent.
And then we get to insurance companies, which are a completely different animal altogether.
Oh boy.
If you are a GP pitching an insurance company, you must understand that you are not really pitching an investment in the traditional sense. You are pitching an asset liability management, or ALM, solution.
Okay, let's hit the brakes. ELI 5 time. I'm 5.
Sure.
For those of us who don't spend our lives in the insurance regulatory framework, what exactly is ALM and what are the capital charges the playbook keeps emphasizing?
It's a great call out. And it's the #1 reason generalist GPs fail with insurance money.
Go on.
An insurance company's primary job is to make sure they have enough liquid cash to pay out claims liabilities when they happen. Asset liability management is how they match the investments they make with the timing of the claims they expect to pay. Furthermore, regulators enforce strict rules.
Because they can't afford to go bust.
Exactly. If an insurance company invests in something perceived as highly risky, like a heavily leveraged private equity fund, the regulator hits them with a massive capital charge.
Meaning they are penalized.
Yes, they are required to hold a massive amount of cash in reserve just in case that risky investment goes to zero. It makes the investment incredibly inefficient for them.
So the high-yield question you must ask an insurance LP is,
How do capital charges and your specific solvency regulations influence what you can actually hold in our strategy?
because if your fund structure triggers a 40% capital charge under the regulatory framework, the conversation is completely over.
The math simply does not work for them no matter how high your projected IRR is.
That is such a critical distinction. It's not about the return, it's about the regulatory cost of the return. Now, let's swing the pendulum to the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Family offices or ultra-high net worth individuals.
Total whiplash. With a single-family office, there are no regulators. There are often no rigid mandates.
They are entirely principle-driven.
The rules are whatever the billionaire patriarch or matriarch says the rules are that morning. They are highly flexible.
So how do you gather intelligence there?
You focus entirely on decision-making dynamics and emotional comfort.
So the high-yield question becomes, who ultimately needs to feel the most comfortable with a commitment here? Is it the CIO acting autonomously, the family principals, or a formal IC?
You are hunting for the true economic buyer. You need to know if the professional CIO you are speaking with actually has the pen, or if they have to go pitch the family patriarch at Sunday dinner.
Huge difference in strategy there. Finally, the playbook covers development finance institutions, or DFIs, and impact investors.
These are organizations that have a dual mandate. They demand financial returns, but they also have strict, heavily audited social or environmental impact requirements.
And the amateur mistake here is pitching the financial return as the core dish and treating the impact as a side salad.
You cannot just sprinkle some ESG language on a deck and win a DFI.
The high-yield question to test reality here is, what specific auditable impact metrics do you require managers to report against quarterly?
That's a trap, isn't it?
A brilliant one.
It tests whether the GP actually has the operational infrastructure to satisfy the DFI's mandate.
If the GP stumbles and says, oh, we sent a nice newsletter with some diversity stats, the DFI knows immediately they aren't equipped to handle institutional impact capital.
Right.
So, to you listening, I really want you to pause and think about your own meetings. Whether you are raising a fund, selling enterprise software, or consulting, are you walking in and asking generic, one-size-fits-all questions?
Probably.
Or are you taking the time to tailor your inquiries to the very specific structural, regulatory, and political constraints of the exact person sitting across the table? Because if you aren't tailoring the interrogation, you aren't gathering intelligence. You're just making noise.
Just making noise.
All right, let's transition to the battlefield. This brings us to what happens when you inevitably hit a roadblock. The playbook doesn't just leave you with clever questions. It provides a comprehensive objection handling matrix.
It introduces a universal 4-step framework for handling literally any objection that comes your way.
Break it down for us.
It is a systematic way to de-escalate friction and extract the truth. Step 1 is to acknowledge and normalize.
So when an objection is raised, human instinct is to argue.
You must suppress that. You reduce their defensiveness by validating their position.
Got it. What's step 2?
Step 2 is clarify. You need to isolate the specific mechanical driver behind the objection rather than accepting the surface-level excuse.
And step 3?
Reframe and test. You introduce a hypothetical condition or a time constraint to test if the objection is a permanent brick wall or just a temporary speed bump.
And step 4 is secure a concrete next step.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't want to just summarize these. Let's actually role play this.
Let's do it.
Let's wind our way through the exact playbook scripts for deconstructing the specific lies LPs tell. I'll play the elusive LP, and you use the 4 steps to corner me.
I'm ready.
Let's start with the classic, the one that makes every GP's heart sink. We're overallocated. So I'm the LP, we're having coffee, I look at you and say, look, your strategy is great, but honestly, we're just completely overallocated in private equity right now. Our hands are tied. Go.
Step 1, acknowledge. That makes complete sense. Almost all of your peers we speak with are feeling the exact same denominator effect and look overallocated on paper right now.
Okay, I feel validated. I relax my shoulders. I'm not being attacked.
Step 2, clarify. When you look at being overallocated, is that more about managing the headline numbers today for the board, or is there a hard mandated freeze on making any new commitments whatsoever this vintage?
So as the LP, I might respond, well, it's a hard freeze for the next 2 quarters, but we have some distributions coming back at year end that might loosen things up.
Perfect. I found a crack. Step 3, reframe and test. Understood. If we look out 12 to 18 months, once those distributions hit, do you foresee room to selectively add a new relationship? Or will defending your existing re-ups consume that entire future budget?
And right there is the moment of truth. If I say, honestly, re-ups will take everything for the next 3 years, you know it's a hard no. You can walk away with clarity.
But if you say, if the strategy is differentiated enough, we might have room for one new name next year, then I move to step 4.
Secure the next step.
Yeah, that's helpful context. What specific data or milestones would you need to see from us between now and then for us to be a highly credible candidate when that capacity finally opens?
That is surgical.
Ugh.
Okay, let's try another one that feels impossible to beat. What if I say, we love the team, but we have a strict policy right now. We are solely focused on re-ups with our existing legacy managers. We just aren't hiring new people.
This is about finding the exception bucket. No rule is absolute. Step 1, acknowledge. Prioritizing your existing relationships right now is entirely rational in this market. Step 2, clarify and probe. But in your experience, when your IC does make room for a new GP, despite that strict focus, what usually justifies the exception? Is it because the new GP offers a genuinely novel exposure you don't have? Or is it because they represent a clear upgrade over a legacy manager who is underperforming?
You are forcing me to define the criteria for my own exception. If I answer, well, if someone brought us a truly unique data infrastructure angle, we'd have to look at it. You now have the map.
Exactly. I map my pitch directly to your exception criteria. Based on that, we should only continue this conversation if we can prove we are a clear upgrade in that exact data infrastructure space. Would it be helpful if we tailored our follow-up materials specifically through that narrow lens to see if we meet that bar?
You aren't arguing with my rule. You are asking for the bypass code.
Brilliant.
Let's tackle the most frustrating objection in existence. The black hole.
Oh, I know this one.
The timing just isn't right for us right now. But please check back next year. You check back next year, and the timing still isn't right.
To avoid the black hole, you must surgically diagnose what the word timing actually means. You say, to make sure we respect your process and don't chase this the wrong way. When you say timing is the hurdle, is that primarily about internal team bandwidth to do the underwriting? Is it a portfolio construction issue, or is it broader IC dynamics?
You force me to be specific. If I say, we just don't have the team bandwidth to underwrite a new manager until Q3, that's a verifiable fact.
But then I have to calibrate your true interest. I test the conviction. Understood on bandwidth. But hypothetically, if bandwidth weren't an issue at all today, do you feel we'd be a strong structural fit for the portfolio, or are there still unresolved questions about our core strategy?
Boom. If I admit, well, we still aren't totally sold on your approach to enterprise risk, you realize that timing was just a polite lie.
They didn't lack time. They lacked conviction in your strategy. You just saved yourself a year of pointless checking-in emails.
Let's hit 2 more quick ones from the Matrix. What if the LP says, we already have 3 managers doing exactly what you do. We're full.
You explore the replacement angle without demanding immediate action. You clarify. How does your team define being full in a category? Is it a hard cap on the absolute number of GP relationships you can manage, or is it more a concern about overlapping risk exposures?
And then?
Then offer a low-pressure comparison. Even if we simply serve as a free reference point right now, would it be valuable if we clearly mapped out where our risk profile and sourcing networks differ from your current stable? That way, if an incumbent ever underperforms and you revisit that bucket, the comparison work is already done for you.
You are planting a seed for their future problems without demanding their capital today.
Precisely. And finally, the classic mandate objection. We're not sure this fits our mandate.
How do you handle that?
You have to clarify if it's a legal rule or a preference. Which specific part feels misaligned? The strategy itself, the risk-return profile, or the liquidity terms? And is that a hard, documented mandate issue where you literally cannot hold this exposure, or is it more of a current committee preference?
Because if it's a hard rule, you gracefully exit.
If it's a preference, you have room to reframe how they are categorizing your fund.
This exhaustive approach to objections leads perfectly into what I think is the most dramatic and challenging scenario in the entire playbook. We have to dedicate serious time to the first-time fund manager's secret weapon.
There is this ultimate catch-22 in capital raising. It's the track record paradox.
It is the single biggest hurdle for emerging managers.
Mhm.
The LPs demand to see 10 years of realized data, full market cycles, under your specific new brand name.
But you are a newly formed brand. You might have a great resume from your old mega fund, but as a new entity, it is mathematically impossible for you to provide 10 years of data.
It creates this immense, almost insurmountable skepticism regarding vintage risk, the risk of backing an unproven firm in its earliest days.
And the Playbook is very firm on this point. The solution is not to try and somehow invent a track record through clever spreadsheet accounting.
You can't fake it.
The solution is entirely about reframing the conversation around what the LP is actually trying to underwrite.
Right. When a sophisticated LP asks for a 10-year track record, they aren't just looking for IRR numbers.
Let's stop again for the ELI5, IRR.
Internal rate of return. It's the standard metric for showing how fast an investment grew.
Got it. So they aren't just looking for high IRR. High returns can be a fluke. They can be a product of a bull market.
What the LP is actually looking for when they ask for a track record is evidence of three things: a repeatable process, extreme risk discipline, and demonstrable market momentum.
If you can prove those three things without a 10-year spreadsheet, you can win the capital.
And the playbook lays out 6 core strategies to tackle this head-on. Strategy number 1. Use your track record as a proxy for process.
You don't just show the 3 deals you did at your last firm. You visually map out your entire cognitive system.
You show them exactly how an idea goes from sourcing to initial screening to deep underwriting to the post-deal value creation plan, all the way to the exit strategy.
You literally look the LP in the eye and say, you aren't buying past deals. You are buying the industrial-grade process that produced them.
Which leads directly into strategy 2, the mini-case story. Because emerging managers cannot rely on fund-level statistics, they must go incredibly deep on specific granular deals.
You bring 3 to 5 highly detailed deal write-ups into the pitch, but here's the critical, highly counterintuitive maneuver.
You do not just bring your biggest wins.
You bring 1 or 2 clear successes, 1 or 2 middling results, and 1 absolute, undeniable failure.
Okay, wait, I have to stop you. Why on earth would a first-time manager who is already battling intense skepticism walk into a high-stakes pitch and deliberately highlight a deal that blew up? That sounds like absolute career suicide.
It sounds terrifying, but it is a massive behavioral intelligence power move. First, by voluntarily bringing up a failed deal before they find it in reference checks, you are demonstrating radical transparency and intellectual honesty that builds immense instant trust.
You completely disarm them.
Completely. But more importantly, you use that failure as the ultimate proof of your process evolution.
You walk them through it.
Here was our thesis at entry. Here is exactly what went wrong or what macro factors shifted unexpectedly. And here, crucially, is the exact mechanism we changed in our underwriting committee process afterward, so that we are structurally protected from this ever happening again.
You are showing them the scars that prove you have the institutional risk discipline to manage their money safely. You aren't hiding from risk. You have learned to master it.
That is legitimately brilliant.
Strategy 3, pre-fund proof points. This is about showing them the goods before you ask for the big, locked-up check.
You utilize small deal-by-deal syndicates or co-invest vehicles to show the LP observable realized returns in real time.
But just as importantly, you are showing them clean professional reporting. You are proving that you can handle the mundane mechanics of being a manager. The capital calls, the quarterly reports, before you ask them to lock up capital in a 10-year blind pool fund.
Which segues perfectly into strategy 4. Governance as a substitute for vintage. LPs are terrified of backing an unproven business, not just an unproven investor.
You might be a genius stock picker, but do you know how to run a compliant financial firm?
Two very different skill sets.
Exactly. So to mitigate this, you heavily overinvest in institutional-grade back-office operations from day one.
You don't wait until you are big.
You implement clean reporting formats. You draft a clear, rigorous investment committee charter. You establish an ironclad valuation policy, and you hire proper compliance officers.
You explicitly tell the LP, we are asking you to take early vintage risk on a new fund, yes, but we have completely eliminated the operational risk by building this firm to institutional standards before we ever asked for a dollar.
Strategy 5 is compelling alignment. If you don't have a 10-year track record to lean on, the LP needs visceral proof that you are going to bleed if they bleed.
This means putting highly meaningful personal capital into the fund a GP commit that actually hurts if you lose it.
It means designing a carried interest structure, your share of the profits, that doesn't fully vest too early, ensuring you stay motivated for the life of the fund.
You might also offer strategic early LPs special reporting access or fee-free co-invest opportunities. You are signaling we are treating this as a true multi-vintage partnership, not just a mechanism to collect management fees and get rich off your capital.
And finally, strategy 6, overqualifying your LPs. When you are a first-time manager, you are naturally desperate.
The instinct is to pitch everyone with a pulse and a checkbook.
The playbook dictates that this is a fatal mistake.
Yeah.
You have to ruthlessly narrow your focus to LPs who explicitly earmark capital for emerging managers, or who have a documented, verifiable history of backing first-time funds.
You have to do the intelligence work before the call.
Yes. If an LP has never backed a fund I in their 40-year history, do not waste a single minute trying to be there first. It will not happen.
Target the specialized impact funds, the aggressive single-family offices, or the specific pension sleeves that actually value the hunger, alignment, and niche expertise of a new GP over the safety of a legacy brand name.
Let's ground all this theory in reality. The playbook backs all of this up with real, specific case studies. Let's look at the success patterns of firms that actually pulled this off.
Let's start with Silversmith Capital Partners.
They raised $460 million in about 3 months for their debut fund. In any market, that is staggering. How did they do it?
They focused on a hyper-narrow, highly repeatable niche, mid-market SaaS.
And to clarify mid-market SaaS, they were investing in medium-sized software-as-a-service companies, a very specific, definable universe.
Right. They didn't try to be everything to everyone, and they used their prior parent firm's track record not as a direct copy-paste replacement, but as undeniable proof of their discipline in that specific sector.
On top of that, they structured a relatively small, highly LP-friendly fund size that they could easily deploy, coupled with incredibly tight governance. They removed every structural excuse an LP could have.
Or look at Rebellion Ventures. They took a totally different approach. They launched a tiny, almost micro debut fund of just $12.9 million.
They did that deliberately to force alignment. By keeping the fund that small, they proved to the market that they weren't just launching a firm to collect a 2% management fee and live comfortably.
The fees on $12.9 million barely keep the lights on. They had to perform to survive.
They explicitly targeted high-net-worth individuals and family offices who cared far more about getting co-invest access to specific, exciting tech deals than they cared about the perceived risk of new vintage.
They secured early, fast wins, built undeniable momentum, and used that narrative to unlock much larger follow-on capital for their next fund.
Gray Kite Capital is another wild story, a first-time real estate fund that managed to raise over $1.5 billion, $1.5 billion for a debut.
They executed this by securing massive, globally recognized anchor tenants early on, names like Leucadia, Wafra, and later Goldman Sachs Asset Management.
Those anchors are the key. They function exactly like the bouncer, letting the cool kids into the VIP section of a club. They provide massive social proof to the rest of the market.
Exactly. Once Goldman is in, nobody else gets fired for investing.
Gray Kite also heavily leveraged the senior-level pedigrees of their founding team, who came from elite mega firms like Blackstone and TPG. They used those resumes as a proxy track record to guarantee operational competence.
Plus, they showed total transparency on fees and hard caps on risk right up front.
And finally, consider Generalist Capital, which raised a $15 million debut VC fund. They operated at the intersection of the creator economy and venture capital.
They built their track record of influence entirely outside the traditional system.
Through a highly respected industry newsletter, they used their massive media platform as undeniable, public proof that they possess superior distribution and deal sourcing capabilities compared to traditional VCs.
They treated the fund as a focused experiment with clear, rigorous reporting.
What all these disparate case studies share is a crystal clear thesis, a repeatable process, and fund structures that deliberately and drastically reduce the perceived risk for the LPs.
Okay, we have covered an immense amount of ground. We've gone through the intelligence theories, the precise solicitation scripts, the tailored profiles, the objection matrices, and the emerging manager strategies.
But here is the harsh reality. Simply reading a playbook or listening to this deep dive is not enough. You cannot just memorize a script and expect to transform your firm's fundraising overnight.
True behavioral intelligence requires integrated muscle memory across your entire team. And that is exactly why Part 6 of the Playbook details how to operationalize all of this theory through a grueling 8-week team training bootcamp.
This bootcamp is designed to move these concepts from intellectual understanding to repeatable, unconscious daily habits.
It's structured around short, intense solo prep, followed by collaborative group exercises using actual recordings of real LP calls.
Let's walk through the curriculum quickly.
Week 1 is entirely dedicated to mindset, getting the team to understand that intelligence gathering isn't an aggressive interrogation. It is a necessary hygiene layer for survival. The primary exercise has team members taking weak, generic questions from recent failed calls and completely rewriting them into sharp, hypothesis-testing questions.
Week 2 dives into the CIA-style elicitation we discussed. The team actually role-plays, converting direct questions into those powerful statement plus permission sequences.
Practicing the exact tonality required to avoid sounding arrogant.
Week 3 is where it gets highly analytical. This week is focused entirely on reading behavioral signals.
Teams bring in anonymized transcripts or audio recordings of actual LP calls they've conducted. The group works collaboratively to identify exactly where the baseline was established in the first 5 minutes, and then they hunt for the deviations.
They locate the exact moments where hedging, pacing shifts, or polite deflection occurred. They are literally training their ears to hear the polite lies in real time.
Then, in weeks 4 through 6, they build their customized firm arsenals. Week 4 has the team splitting into groups to build specific 10-question elicitation radars for every single LP archetype.
One customized set for pensions, one for family offices, one for endowments.
Week 5 is intense, live objection handling practice. Everyone brings the toughest, most painful objections they've faced in the last year, and the group walks them through the 4-step framework. Acknowledge, clarify, probe, and test.
Week 6 is dedicated specifically to first-time fund or new strategy skepticism. Everyone on the team drafts and votes on a standardized 90-second script for how to handle track record concerns.
And they commit to writing up those crucial, vulnerable mini-case studies we talked about.
And it all culminates in weeks 7 and 8, which are focused on data and long-term integration. Week 7 is about building what the Playbook calls the one-page LP intelligence dashboard.
This tracks not just what the LP politely said in the meeting, but hard, verifiable engagement signals.
Like how long the Zoom call actually lasted, if they requested access to the data room, if they opened the follow-up emails.
And most importantly, it tracks the behavioral signal scores we discussed.
And Week 8 locks in the ongoing cadence. This isn't a one-off training. Everyone shares a recent call using the prep and debrief templates.
They establish a mandatory quarterly rhythm to continuously refresh their question sets and objection scripts based on what is actually working in the shifting macro market.
The ultimate takeaway from this entire exhaustive deep dive is a profound shift in perspective. The most successful capital raisers out there, the ones who are actually closing oversubscribed funds in a brutal down market, do not win because they have the flashiest slide deck.
They don't even necessarily win because they have the absolute highest historical returns.
They win because they are vastly superior gatherers of intelligence. They surface the real hidden objections faster than anyone else, and they ruthlessly focus their time, their energy, and their resources purely on LPs who possess genuine, verifiable behavioral momentum.
So here is our final call to action for you, the listener. We challenge you to take the prep and debrief templates we've outlined today.
Setting a clear hypothesis, limiting yourself to a few targeted questions, establishing a baseline, and immediately debriefing those behavioral deviations.
And apply them to your very next meeting. It does not even have to be a fundraising call. Try it on a client call, a vendor negotiation, or an internal strategy meeting. Test the framework.
It will completely change what you hear. You will stop listening to the polite words and start listening to the underlying intent.
Exactly.
And that leaves us with one final provocative thought to chew on. We spent this entire time talking about how you, the GP, can use behavioral intelligence to extract the truth from an LP who is using polite professional norms to hide their constraints.
You're playing a high-level game to bypass their filters.
But consider the reality of the market. This knowledge isn't perfectly siloed. What happens when the person sitting across the table has read the exact same playbook?
That's a scary thought.
Imagine sitting down with an elite sovereign wealth fund CIO. You casually start with a low-stakes question about their firm's history to establish a baseline. But they know exactly what you are doing, so they intentionally, artificially alter their baseline.
Then you throw out a carefully crafted label and permission statement to test their budget.
They recognize the elicitation tactic immediately, and they counter it by offering a perfectly calibrated, entirely fabricated deviation to throw you completely off the scent.
Suddenly, you aren't just pitching a fund. You are engaged in a mutual, invisible arms race of intelligence gathering.
Where both sides are simultaneously trying to elicit the truth while dynamically manipulating their own behavioral signals.
The tools of behavioral intelligence are incredibly powerful.
But as they proliferate, the boardroom transforms into a complex game of spy versus spy. The truth is absolutely out there. But as the market gets smarter, you'll have to work much, much harder to decipher what is a signal and what is just a brilliantly executed countermeasure. Keep your eyes open, and we'll see you next time.